So to answer the question of how abroad changed me, I first just want to point out the question itself, because it's such a cliche for people to come back and say, "Oh, abroad changed me," and people will say it as a joke, and you might cringe a little on the inside. But cliches exist for a reason. Abroad does change people. It does strengthen you. I think the most important strengthening aspect of abroad for me was being presented this freedom and this autonomy to be, thousands of miles away from BC, from home, back in California for me, and being able to do what I wanted to do, being able to, if I wanted to go hop on a plane and visit another part of Europe, that freedom, that autonomy, it was almost groundbreaking for me, and it allowed me to grow a lot. Abroad also strengthened me because I tried to get out of my comfort zone. As a McGillycuddy-Logue fellow, I completed service at a nursery in Oxford through an organization called the Oxford Hub. And for my friends that know me, they know I being around kids, that's probably not my strong suit, or at least it wasn't. And I spent hours each week working with kids, reading to them, teaching them the alphabet, just generally trying to care for them. And that was a very strengthening experience for me. I grew a lot from it. And if it wasn't for the McGillycuddy-Logue program, I probably wouldn't have been able to do that. So when you bring those two things together, right, kind of this freedom and getting out of your comfort zone, I think they come together and they made me less fearful of the unknown. Just for a short example, before I got called back, I had 6 weeks off between my terms at Oxford, and I was going to go do a 4-week solo backpacking trip through Eastern Europe. Now, I had dreamed of doing things like that before I went abroad, but I didn't think I had it in me to do that. And the confidence that came from abroad, I think that's the big thing. The confidence that came from abroad, it allowed me to get out of my comfort zone. It allowed me to plan these things and really feel more confident in myself. So that's how abroad strengthened me. When it comes to students who are deciding whether or not to go abroad, my advice might seem a little self-defeating, might not be the right word, but almost counterproductive. My advice is to not put too much emphasis on the advice of other people. Everyone wants something different out of abroad. Some people might say, oh, it's the one time in your life where you can party a lot, so you want to go to this city, or you might want to go to this school because it looks great on a resume, or might want to go to this school because it's off the grid in South Africa or something like that. But this is one of the only times where you can do something for yourself. And that means don't prioritize what your friend wants you to do, or what a sibling who went abroad wants you to do, or what your parents want you to do. Only you can make the decision for what you want to do, and only you can know what you want to do, right? So my advice to you is do a little soul searching, to be completely honest. Don't put too much emphasis on the advice of others, because then you won't get the most out of it, because then you'll be doing it for other people, right? Make the decision on your own terms, and whether that is to stay at BC because maybe you don't want to get out of your comfort zone, which is completely valid, or maybe it's you want to go abroad for, again, school, nightlife, whatever that could be. Don't put too much emphasis on the advice of others. Do what you want to do. For me, the biggest myth about abroad that I noticed was kind of this myth of perfection, that abroad is going to be the peak, and everything you've been doing in your life has been leading up to this 4 or 5 month vacation or something, and then everything afterwards won't live up to abroad. I think that's a very destructive mindset because, newsflash, life in Europe is still life. Life has its ups and downs, its peaks and valleys, and to a certain extent, those peaks abroad might be higher because you're just so excited, it's just such a new environment, and those valleys, those downs might be even worse because you don't have your support system around you. And I think this idea of perfection, this is kind of social commentary, but it comes from social media partly, right? I think that's a thing. You just look online and everyone's smiling, in Barcelona for the weekend, in Paris for 4 months, and it just seems perfect, like nothing's wrong. That's not true. Abroad is a very challenging time. It was for me. It's for a lot of people. It's also a great time. So I think it's very counterproductive to come in with this idea that it's going to be perfect and it has to be perfect, because it won't be perfect. And then when it's not perfect, you might beat yourself up because you're like, well, everyone else is having the greatest time of their life. Why am I still, why do I have some downs here and there? So that was the biggest myth I noticed about abroad, kind of this myth of perfection, and it can be really detrimental to your experience. So best thing I can say is life in Europe, still life, ups and downs, and don't be too hard on yourself when you have those downs because it'll eventually happen. Ups are good too, though, so keep that in mind.